Greetings. Yes, happy everything, Nubians, and everyone else who's not a Nubian yet, but Nubians get first hellos.
No question.
What?
Hey,
Hi, hey, Dr. Carr.
hey, Professor Hunter. Happy everything, good everything, everybody around the world. It's a beautiful thing. I decided to be a little hot today because I put on my Black Star line joint that I bought on 125th Street many years ago. This is a stock certificate in the Black Star line from Marcus Garvey and Amy Garvey. So I figured I'd wear it today. By the way, in terms of convicting Marcus Garvey of fraud, this is exactly not what was in that empty envelope that the feds used to send him to jail illegally. So pardon Marcus Garvey. How's that going, Professor Hunter? I think we
not what I expected, but it's everything I expected at the same time. And I wanted to bring in a book to that I found in the library. But Uraeus, I know you're watching. We can do that. You know, Dr. Julius Garvey is down with everything that we're doing. Anything we can do to help partner his dad, I'm down with it. So
no question.
125th Street, yes, thank you, but also in Nubia and narrative exclusively.
That's right. That's right. And also, hey, everybody, and those who are watching a little later on YouTube as it goes around the world, I mean, we've been between 20 and 30,000 or more forever since, and by the way, Professor Hunter, love, I'm going to talk a little bit about this a little later. A couple of sisters, one a graduate of Georgia State, somebody else from Tuskegee. I was with them earlier this past week. They want me to send you their love and say thank you for getting us through the pandemic. Because when those huge numbers, when we didn't have narrative in Nubia and those big numbers, the 100,000, 200,000 in the dead of the thing, they just wanted me to it's the first time I seen them on this campus in real life. And they said, tell her that was Thursday night. So I just wanted to say that before it's anything else. Thank you, they said.
Between this and club quarantine, we
right. And what happened to Versus? Oh, they just went left, huh?
Well, no, they sold out, and then right. They paid them. Yeah, they Swiss Beats and Timberland sold to some billionaires that didn't pay them, and then
So what did we do? Oh, we sold in. I guess if that's selling out, we sold in, huh?
Sold in.
We sold in. Nice. And y'all see how this works? This is how. Yeah. Okay.
SOW and we SEW.
No question. No question. So y'all go out there and get everybody who is watching this whenever or wherever you're watching it from. Do what Professor Hunter said. If you have signed the petition, excellent. If you haven't, do it. And if you have or haven't, go get 9 other people. 10 other people, I think you said, Professor Hunter, right? 10 other people.
I mean,
let's blow past all the barriers,
Yeah, it takes less than 2 minutes. I will drop the link to the pardon petition in the description, which apparently very few people read because I keep getting. So where do I have? I'm like, everything is in the description. I take a few minutes. I take longer to write the description than to sign the petition, to drop stuff in the description so you could just click on it. I try to make.
Let's do it, y'all. Let's do it, y'all. Let's not debate whether or not the government or whatever, because if you don't need any other reason, Dr. Garvey said, I want my daddy to have a pardon. That should be enough. We family, right? This is a governance structure. If you set aside all the reasons and just go to that, you know what I'm saying?
So I was driving the month before last, in my neighborhood, and the library had like a book sale. So
those are the best.
I'm inspired by you, right? So you could get 5 books for free.
Yes.
And then you could buy the rest for like $2 or whatever. So
I've never understood those sales. Those are de-accessioning sales. In other words, how is this book here? This book should be in the library. Y'all giving these books away. They're either free or $1, $2, or $3. Oh, yes, those are the best sales. Oh, I love it. Wait a minute. You was about to show. What did you find?
So I found this book.
Yes. Yes, John Hope Franklin.
Right.
Wow. That's his memoir. Mirror to America.
So I was smiling because I was like, oh, I know Dr. Carr got this book, and I know
no question. I got a signed copy of John Hope Franklin book. No question. But we talked about but I mean,
we had a whole episode on it.
Many of them in the context of Tulsa.
But I wanted to pull one paragraph forward because it kind of speaks to where we are. Even I had Dr. Ron Daniels on this week talking about reparations and, just the way people are searching for offense and conflict and, division, as if by dividing your platform. Yes, you have a platform. It's great. You have followers. Mm-hmm. But how do it free us? How?
do it free us? We see how it free you.
Yes.
But it don't free us.
I guess individual freedom. I wonder what Harriet would think about that, because she was.
If individual freedom, she'd have left the first time she left the Eastern Shore and not look back. She wouldn't have come back and got all them hundreds of people. She wouldn't have come back and directed troops in battle to set what plantation to burn and all that Combahee River stuff in South Carolina. She wouldn't have come back and got her parents. She wouldn't have created that a home for what she called it, retired slaves up there in Auburn, New York. She wouldn't have done any of that. She could have just left. She was out. She was out the game. How many families? We'll never know. No, are directly here today because our mentor, Harriet Ross Tubman, said, yeah, this ain't about me. I'm coming back. Isn't that something?
Well, I mean, because what is freedom? You know, I was lamenting yesterday, like, you know, that island in the North Sentinel Island, where the indigenous people there will shoot you on sight with poison darts or whatever.
Oh yeah, I remember you talking about that.
Pull up on them. I'm like, I just want to, like, if there's an island adjacent to it, you know, it's like, because sometimes you're just like, man, y'all, y'all want to live, y'all. I mean, beyond division, the planet, like y'all okay with the planet? All right, okay, all right. Maybe I'll just be on that island adjacent to the people that are going to shoot you on sight, and then say, if you see anybody come to this island, take care of them. I'll be by myself in a loincloth and
well, if you by yourself, you don't need her.
Yeah, I was gonna say, well, you know, just the body.
In fact, it's so funny.
Leave the titties out.
They had an archive issue of the New Yorker this week, so I was reading the issue, and they had some of the old cartoons. You know how the New Yorker has those cartoons. Sometimes you got to sit there and think about it. But one of them they republished. There were these aliens, and they were looking through this telescope, and one of them said, "Oh, looks like the humans have improved their technology, and they can see us now. Go put on some clothes." but it reminds me of something that I think is attributed to Jean-Paul Sartre. And Sartre is like, we don't know we're naked till somebody knock on the door. I mean, in other words, you know, how much about clothing is really about perception and how we think other people think. So when you see all them clothes on, like, why you got them clothes on? Because does
that apply to the nakedness of how we think about things too? Like,
of course,
not until somebody brings it to our attention, which I think is so powerful. What you're able to do in the craft of teaching and how you teach is that many of us are walking around naked of thought or dark of thought, meaning or white of thought, not seeing things until it's brought to your attention, and then it's like, you can see that,
or it's okay to say it. I think, and by the way, thank you everybody for these Monday nights and so-called office hours, because I was reading something an educator said she changed the name of her office hours to drop-in hours. And the students started coming different because when they think office hours, they think different. I said, maybe we should have drop it, but I don't want to mess with it because we have. But that conversation we had Monday night about this Africana Studies class that we're putting together, I've never had a public conversation like that around writing a syllabus. And so the one that I'm writing now, which will mirror in some ways and then go way beyond in other ways, the one that I'm using for the class that I teach, the intro class I teach at Howard. That conversation was so rich. And part of it is this Africana Studies framework that we're going to go over for the first part of the class. And the second part will apply it. We had to develop those categories of governance and social structure, in part because of what you're saying. So much of what we are and who we are and how we interact are things that we have experienced and we remember. We're always adding to our knowledge, but in some ways, metaphorically, given the metaphor you laid out in terms of being naked or being clothed, sometimes it's about taking clothes off, because even in governance, when we feel comfortable in having a conversation, we can say things that we know we want to say, but in the clothing of the world, you know, the social scientists, cultural studies people, they call it the street. You know, in the street, the social structure in many ways is the street. There are things we're trained at home not to say in the street. You know, children always violating that. Mommy, didn't you say? Oh, no. This is the street. Don't say what we say at home in the street. So, I mean, part of Africana Studies work is helping people be comfortable enough to say, let's talk. Because our disagreements are always the disagreements we have in private.
Yes.
So thank you for that. You know what I'm saying? We disagree on stuff, but what we say at the house, the disagreement, when we go in public, yeah. In fact, we're going to talk about that in a minute in the context of Michael Jackson, I think, since his birthday is day tomorrow.
a couple of days.
The 29th of August. This is say that because people could be watching this anytime. People watch all week. But anyway, I don't want to take y'all track. You found John Franklin, huh?
Yeah, no, actually, we're talking. First of all, I've never been more excited to take a class in my entire life. Let me just say that to
join. We not taking. We exchanging.
The way you laid that thing out, and what is even more important is that it is evolving. Like
yes.
And it, we are adding to, like you're working through it in real time. Like we don't get to see professors work. I started class this week, Thursday.
Yes.
And, I said, everything in this syllabus is subject to change because the world is ever changing. And so I'm not going to be rigid and stick to a syllabus that I've been using for the last 20 years. As things evolve, naturally, as journalism, we're going to talk about what's happening in the world. We're going to bring in guests. We're going to do so. Everything in here is subject to change. And it's like, these kids are so rooted in rote memorization and structure and order from the standpoint that they have not been taught to critically think. And then you throw something at them that they're not used to, and it's like they get apoplectic. And I'm like, yeah, no, you're going to critically think in this class, and you're going to learn to be nimble, and you're going to learn to be open, and you're going to learn to process information in real time, and whatever's on this syllabus is going to change. And, and you're not going to be wedded to your grade, because how you do in this class is not going to be based on your test scores, because your test is showing up and participating in this dialogue and your own freedom. So
you're teaching a craft. I mean, when you're teaching a craft, it's so funny you say that everything is subject to change, because I was having a conversation the other day with Holly Greenman. I always try to soak up a little bit more from the elder every time we sitting there and talking. And we were talking about syllabus development. I'm sharing some of the things we're doing this past Monday. And he said, in 43 years of teaching at Howard, and of course he continues to teach. In fact, they're developing this film institute that he's developing for people who want to be filmmakers. He said, I wouldn't order books. He said, they would get mad at me. Professor Greenwood, when you gonna order your books? And he would say, I am the book. He said, I'm a filmmaker. So if you're taking my class, he said, you won't just learn directing. You're gonna learn acting, editing. You're gonna learn sound. He said, now I don't want to do that, because I work at an institution. I'm here because the young people that I want to teach are here. And if we had the budget to hire people to teach sound for film, because sound for film is different than sound for radio. If we had somebody to teach editing, if somebody was doing acting, but I'm going to do all that because when you come to me, you want to be a filmmaker. He said, what book is going to teach you that? I make films. He said, I'm always suspicious of people teaching filmmaking who ain't never made no film. Now you're a working journalist, so you are the book. This was the point Holly was saying. He's like, I'm the book. You're the book here.
And I said to them, no disrespect to my colleagues, but this is not something you could teach out of a book today.
Exactly.
Journalism has, in the last 5 years, evolved. And I'm like, I don't know how many of your professors are actually working in media or shaping media, because that's a whole other thing too, because we're not just in media.
No.
We're shaping what media should look like. And I said, I expect people in this class to participate in making it what it should be, not just, going out to get a job. What should it be? What should news be? And then I brought in Charles Loeb versus the New York Times. This is the first class. So we going, yeah. And I said, and I'm very Black. So I'm going to lean into who I am. I'm going to expect you to do the same, because we need people to bring their full selves to journalism, to media, And it was interesting. I had a young lady who was raised in Malaysia, which,
interesting.
Yes. So I said, so did you learn English there or here? She said, we learned English. Of course, we had to learn it in school, but I learned English watching television.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. So I started off the class saying I'm not code switching. She said, so I'm code switching right now. And I was like, she didn't know the term until I dropped it, but she understood it enough to say, yes, I'm code switching. This is now how I talk when I'm home. And I was like,
and there's the value added of the classroom. That's the content knowledge. That's what Asa Hilliard would say. A teacher should have content knowledge and the ability to help students acquire their own content knowledge and apply those skills. That's an excellent example. She didn't know that phrase. That's why you pay the tuition. That's why you come, because I didn't know that. Now that I know that, I can use. Thank you. There was a label for it. There was a place I could put that to help. Wow. She said she code switched. I didn't know the name.
Yeah.
Before I love that.
And I was like, I want to know, and I want to know what it sounds like when you're talking to your mother. You know,
No question.
You'll be sent on assignment, and you may end up in a Malaysian community where you know, and that's the value of having a diverse newsroom, by the way, because everybody, they're people, and everywhere. And you need to have people who could talk to people, because as you know, when we were talking about the enslaved folk, when the white folk came out to interview them after enslavement, they talked differently to them than Kasula talked to Zora Neale Hurston. You know, it's a different conversation when you have kinship, when you have relationship.
That's right. I have a student, and I'm gonna talk about, probably mention her again. Sister Ariel Gordon from St. Louis. She'd be mad if I didn't say from St. Louis. She was one of the young sisters from HBCUs that spent 2 months out at UCLA this summer. When Dr. Beatty came, and he's her professor here at Howard, but she was out there doing this Egyptology intensive, and she was there yesterday. A number of the students came, and because I told them I'm gonna try to go over to Sankofa for a couple of hours on Friday afternoon. Then near the end, some students came and said, "So you're going to be here tomorrow, right? You said you would come tomorrow afternoon." I said, "Did y'all hear what I said in class Thursday?" To your point of, are you listening? I said today, and then the rest of them said, he said today. I was like, yeah, because I can't, be everywhere all the time. But anyway, I said to Ariel, her creativity, her mind is so expansive that she thinks in these rhythms and metaphors that if you are a teacher who is off put by that kind of thing, she would destroy you, because she had you questioning yourself. And I hate to say it that way, but there are a lot of teachers, and we need all the teachers we can get. But I just mentioned her because as you're talking and thinking about how when a student presents their whole self, the teacher has to use that. And she often comes, like, she writes music, she plays the djembe, she writes poetry, she paints. She was showing my colleague Eric Ruffin, who is a deeply trained, brilliant theater man. She was showing him her portfolio. So here's all this artwork that is brilliant. He's like, wow, you did this? Yeah. Mixed media. She got some sculpture in there. She got some then she had a thing of her playing the djembe with her ensemble, all these brothers and sisters in St. Louis. Then she did a riff on Dred and Harriet Scott, where she and her girlfriends are standing in front of the statue of Dred and Harriet Scott downtown St. Louis, in front of the courthouse where Dred Scott was tried, and where he filed his lawsuit. I'm saying I to say that now Eric has a mind like that. So what I watched in real time yesterday was him helping her figure out where to channel that, because she wants to do this mixed media senior thesis. And I've gotten her to a point, and I understand where she's going, but she needed somebody with those skills and a teacher. And so as you're describing the classroom that you were in, and starting again this past Thursday, when you encounter a student like that, a teacher has to be open to understand this is an exchange of knowledge. And so then, of course, when that class was over, I'm sure now the word goes forth, Professor Hunter, she gets it. That's how teachers get reputations for being, you know what I'm saying? Because they know you can help me. This is what I came here for. Yes.
What I also said was I teach because I love to learn. And every
yes.
semester, so y'all are going to be my teachers this semester. I'm going to learn about who you are, who your peoples are, because this is a people process. That's journalism, right. Media is about people. It's about understanding humanity and people and what makes people do the things that they do. And in that understanding, it allows you to form better questions, because it's also really about digging and get to a truth, some truth. So yeah, to that point, I'm always excited. And I was telling you off mic, because it's I have young people from all over. But even if I didn't have young people from all over, I'd have young people from all over, because everybody is bringing something unique and different into the space. And that is, I'm pulling from to inform how I see the world. And that's what we should be doing here.
And now we're here, which is the renewed normal allows us to, I got my new normal. That's the earlier, remember my new joint is right. The renewed normal.
We keep evolving.
No question, we keep evolving. It allows us now for this to be the center, as we talked about last week. The school year typically is late August through May or June, but not anymore. We have changed that. I mean, COVID is a tragedy. COVID continues. COVID also stopped the world, and we got something our ancestors didn't get. We got a moment to sit and reframe. And now that it's reframed, it ain't never going back to the way it was. So yeah, we both re-entered the classroom, and many people here in Nubia, many folks watching this later have re-entered the classroom. We're going to talk about the classroom as it relates to student loans, I think, a little bit later.
Yes.
But at the same time, those classrooms are extensions of our governance formations, our structures. Now we can enhance, interact, and grow in a space that we control. Like say, we have, as you say, sewn in. So now we've sewn in and we're here, and that can't be budged. That can't be budged. You know, I mean, reparations, the first and Ron Daniels knows this. Ron Daniels has taught this, the National Coalition of Blacks for Reparations in America. Shout out to Cobra. You know, I'm a member of the board now, and we talked about this. The first step in reparations is self-repair. You can't do that for us. And you know, Dr. Daniels was over in Ghana, and he was over in Rome, and the MacArthur Foundation has gotten involved. This MIT African Futures Lab has gotten involved. I'm saying that's beautiful. You know, of course, they're in this to interfere. You do know that, okay, so I have no doubt that you can flip and parlay some of that money to do some things, and that's fine. But please understand, help ain't always help if people have a different agenda. We'll talk about that a little bit differently, but later. But all I'm saying is the first step is self-repair. No foundation, no corporation, no check. Nobody can do that for you. If you take those resources and absorb, and what we're doing here, this is us. This is us, and that is the first reparations. From there, we plan our tactics. But yeah, this is critical.
Well, you know, part of that repair also has to be remembrance, right? So as I'm reading, and I just picked this up because I have there's a medical book that I got and a few others, but Mirror to America. And as I'm reading it, I was like, I know we've talked about John Hope Franklin many times.
They were both born in 1915, which is crazy. John Franklin, and they knew each other well. Yeah.
That's crazy.
That is crazy.
But in on page 15, he's talking about Rentisville, being a little boy, and his dad, you know, of course, Buck Franklin, being this amazing human being who went to law school and, you know, got a law degree in a period of time when he couldn't really even practice or make money. But he was such a scholar. But so he says there was a local feud. So there was a feud happening in Rentisville. And what people don't know, we talk Black Wall Street, Tulsa, Oklahoma, but there were a lot of Black thriving communities. Why? Because Black people built the country. So when we walked out of enslavement, what did we do? Built our own neighborhoods and built our own communities because that's all we knew how to do. I don't know where we forgot how to do that. But what we also did was feud. So apparently,
of course,
he said the local feud had robbed the Rentisville Trading Company, which my father had organized, of support. So the rifts that happened in Rentisville robbed the very foundation of the business that his father had helped to bring together, the Rentisville Trading Company, my father had organized, of support, and fueled the decline of his newspaper, the way in which information was disseminated. He said there were the final failures that persuaded my parents that this so-called utopia, this bastion of racial unity, this Eden where all were supposed to be sisters and brothers, it was a travesty. Having done absolutely all he could to survive and even improve his community, giving it everything he had to aid its development and prosperity, my father was now willing to acknowledge his efforts had failed and the time had come to seek a better life, even if it meant returning to a segregated community. And I think about Marcus Garvey and all the things he was trying to do, and then have Black people testify against him, and folk just, you know, up in something that could have been beautiful if we all got involved. Well, I don't have a leadership position. Well, I'm not the one that started it. Well, it's not my face on the thing, so I'm not supporting that because it's not, it's not me centric. And I think about
weird because I don't know that I don't think we can win. And if they destroy you, they coming for me next. That tactic works over and over again. When you crucify Malcolm or Martin, when you persecute a Muhammad Ali, or when you try to attack a Nina Simone, or you call somebody crazy, and then people say, well, I'm not going to be the next one. And they say, well, we don't need you to do anything. We just need you to leave the door open. Okay. Or we just need you to, tell us where Billie Holiday is going to score her next. Okay. All right. That's not much. I mean, I love her, but I understand you the police and I'm scared of y'all. I mean, that all that, like you said, and it breaks hearts. And then like in the case of Buck Franklin, you know, this isn't an indictment of Buck Franklin at all. It takes a different kind of person to just take that L over and over again. That's who Marcus Garvey was. That's who Amy Jakes and Amy Ashwood Garvey were. We know going in, we're going to take a L. This is the afterlives of enslavement. This is what Amos Wilson writes about. He says black on black violence in service of white domination. In other words, as Malcolm asked, who taught you to hate yourself? You know, that self-hatred is practiced on ourselves first and then our other selves in terms of other people. So yeah, as you're describing that, I often say this, I mean, you know, and I look at our brother and friend and elder Jeremiah Wright. You know, when they came for Jeremiah Wright, they came with everything they had. He's still standing. But at the same time, why didn't we punch back with everything we had? Because y'all scared.
Well, it also was like, well, if we do that, then maybe they won't elect the first black president. And if somehow we were going to get some magic prize as a result of that election, but that's because we don't have any momentum of memory. But even in reading this, you know, it's like, you know, let's leave, because the COINTELPRO wasn't a part of Rentersville. You know, it was the success that was burgeoning was a threat to somebody. Absolutely. And it's always going to be boo birds in the corner or the Muppets in the balcony casting aspersion to anything that is moving in the direction of freedom, because somehow success and freedom casts a light on people who are doing nothing.
Oh, that's interesting.
So I just wanted to bring up Mirror to America because I got this for free and I'm happy.
Yeah.
Like, wait a minute. So Rentersville could have been the first Black Wall Street.
Well, I mean, we know that Tulsa was being fed by various supply chains, not just human supply chains, but all those all black towns in Oklahoma. Many of them were connected to the urban center. And we know Tulsa shouldn't be there. They discovered oil and there was this boom in Oklahoma City and Tulsa. And we know that, of course, the whole state of Oklahoma wasn't a state. It was a territory. That's where you forced the indigenous people and the Africans out to get rid of them as you colonized the Southeast, the so-called Trail of Tears. And in fact, that's what I was mentioning David Moran's new book, Path to Lightning, on Jim Thorpe. Jim Thorpe from that territory, Sac and Fox. Jim Thorpe is from Oklahoma. And Moranza starts this with a story of dispossession. Dispossession. In fact, what he says here is there was another myth at the center of the Thorpe story, perhaps the greatest athlete in the history of the United States, an indigenous man. He says a deeper and more pernicious myth that had to do with the history and treatment of the American Indian. The myth that the great white father knows best. Thorpe's life spanned a 65-year period when the dominant society believed the best way to deal with Indians was to rid them of their Indianness and make them as white as possible. It was that mentality that shaped Thorpe's life. I'll stop there because it's 600 pages and I haven't been able to get into it the way I want. You know
what's crazy? I have a Filipino young person in my class.
Mm-hmm. She almost said child. It's crazy because that's governance language. They are our children. I mean, because it's hard not to think of them that way. But anyway, go ahead. And then we put our clothes on for the social structure and say student.
From Tulsa, Oklahoma.
From Tulsa.
Yeah. So I said, do you know about Greenwood? Did you learn about Greenwood in school? So I said, how many people in this class, raise your hand, heard of Black Wall Street? Not a single hand went up. And I said, you're from Tulsa, including the one from Tulsa, Oklahoma, born and raised through the school system, didn't hear. So, you know, I spent time on that. I said, so nobody watched Watchmen? Nobody saw Lovecraft Country? Nobody said, okay, all right, history lesson. And I said, you know, the importance of knowing history is that it also informs your journalism, because the more you know, the better questions you can form, the more you can dig and go down rabbit holes to bring more things forth for people. So they got to learn about Tulsa as well. Yeah. So, I mean, it's a shame though. How do you go through a school system and not learn one thing about the most thriving
community set up to do that? In fact, that's the war there. The young brother who started the Wall Street Times there, they're fighting in the Greenwood district to claim territory and space to self-determine, because we know that the folks who are here to help now out of the social structure are here to interfere. Meaning, even with the best intentions, it's interference. In other words, we think you should do this. We think you should do this. Okay, well, how about we tell you what we think, and then you figure out how you can assist in helping us with what we think. No, we want to be at the table. No, you want to be the table, and you want us at your table, and then you plot and plan. So, yeah, the school district in Tulsa, there's a major fight there. You know, I think about Dr. Crutcher. I think about so many other, Demario Simmons. I mean, there's so many other people in Tulsa. I don't want to start naming folk because you can't name everybody. And there are so many who are fighting. And part of the fight is that the school district, you know, that wonderful governor of Florida, who I really embrace with both hands. I really think that Ron DeSantis is doing a fine job. I encourage him to continue to do that. He just suspended some elected school board members in Florida around these issues. And the reason I say that, I'm not saying that ironically, I mean it. Because see, DeSantis is going to destroy the settler project. And that's what it's going to take. You say, are you advocating violence? Absolutely. Intellectual warfare. You understand? This is what Jacob Carruthers wrote about and talked about. Intellectual warfare. Ron DeSantis is a white nationalist, a fascist. And he is doing a remarkable job of leaving people with no place to hide, nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. In fact, I should give a shout out. I was just, anyway, let me stop because we'll go back a couple of weeks and thinking, of course, about Lamont Dozier. But I'm saying all that to say that curriculum is doing what it's supposed to do, wherever it is, whether it be Texas, whether it be Florida, whether it be the book banning that is going on. I was listening to one of the officials from the American Library Association. And shout out, we've talked about them many times, and we'll talk about them many more times, the Black librarians around the country. But what this lady was talking about was these book banning lists. You know, elementary schools, junior high schools, and of course, we pay for those books. So the book that you got, those books that you got for free, Professor Hunter, you paid for them with your taxes. Those were paid for. And so you just kind of recovering it. But then, and I'm always amazed at library sales when I see books, particularly I buy books that are rare, out of print, and should be on shelves. I ask myself, why am I walking home with another copy of this book I already have to give to somebody or to put somewhere that they can get their hands on it? And I bought several copies of John Hope Franklin's memoir over the years since it came out and giving them away. But I'm saying all that to say that when you think about people banning books because they don't like the gender orientation in the children's book, or they don't want any books on Black folk, I wonder if John Hope Franklin's book is now in your possession in library and you're sharing it with us because somebody said, get rid of this book. Who's making the de-accessioning decisions? You understand? Who threw this book away or basically gave it back to us? And I'll end with this. While that battle is going on, and it is a long and noble fight, one that I'm proud to say I was recruited into as a younger adult. And so I got to work with and be up close with a lot of those great warriors, the Asa Heards and the Barbara Sizemores, the Kwame Kenyattas and Kay Lovelaces. I mean, you start naming the African-centered schools of Detroit and Kansas City and Atlanta and Philly and DC and New York. I mean, so Baba Jitu Weusi and the Council of Independent Black Institutions, Baba Hannibal Tyreek out of Chicago. I mean, I'm very happy to have been recruited in that, because what I got to see up close is that there are always two things in that war, that intellectual war. While you are fighting, because as Jacob Carruthers used to always say, while we got these African-centered schools and formations, our children are in the public schools. So we have to intervene on their behalf. So while the Sharcy McIntyres and while the Marimba Anis and while so many others were battling in the public schools to get this in, and then private schools too, to get this in, the other thing, the main thing was we are developing our own centers, our own work, so that while Ife Carruthers in Chicago was a public school teacher for many years in the public school, she's also a member of the Kemetic Institute and developing curriculum there. And on Saturdays, they had something called Teaching About Africa, where they would bring the school teachers of Chicago in and talk about curriculum development, expose them to content, workshop ideas. Well, guess what? Here we are now. What is Nubia? What is narrative? It is an extension of that long arc of grounded, self-determining intellectual work that then connects to those other spaces in the social structure. We don't concede an inch, but we don't orient ourselves in a fight, because when you orient yourself in a fight, your whole identity becomes fighting. But we're here. So they're doing what they're supposed to do. The question is, will we do what we're supposed to do? I embrace Ron DeSantis. I love the way he thinks, the way he moves, because he's taking away all of the places to hide. You are my open enemy, but worse still, you're open enemy of yourself and all of humanity, Governor. And so, come on, baby. As Marimba Ani used to say, Bolakaja, come on down. Let's fight. Let's dance. because I know that your ankle's gonna break about 3 seconds into the dance. You see, and in the words of Michael Joseph Jackson, Billie Jean, one of the great lyrics in American songbook, be careful what you do when the lie becomes the truth. You understand? So if you're looking for the truth in your child's curriculum at school, you fight to get some in there, but don't bring that stuff over here, because we are pouring the clean glasses of water. You're not going to be a slave to the rhythm to evoke another Michael Jackson song. We're not going to be a slave to the rhythm. Anyway.
So this week, President Biden forgave $10,000 for people making under $125,000 student loan debt, and $20,000 for those who have had Pell Grants. For some reason, that was very controversial. Like, did the previous three presidents? I mean, like, I don't know if any forgiveness happened. And if y'all cared about all forgiveness, you should have elected Elizabeth Warren. That's how I feel, because she said she was going to cancel all debt. So if that was an important issue, you should have voted for Elizabeth Warren.
How about that?
So your thoughts on that? I don't really have a dog in this race because I never had student loans. Full disclosure.
You got a dog in it.
Okay, tell me where my dog is.
The dog is all around us. I mean, I think by that, the dog is all around us. Lord have mercy. Yeah,
personally, like it's a personal, like I
see.
Spent 20 years paying off my loans, and now these people Republicans were getting cute with the, well, the doctors, we're paying the working class, the farmers, the people that never went to school, they're paying for doctors and lawyers and these elite liberals. And then the White House was clapping back. They got a young person from Rutgers who's handling their social media saying, "Oh, this you? Didn't you get $1 million in PPP?
You gotta love it.
Didn't you get $481,000, Marjorie Taylor Greene? That was forgiven? Oh, okay. Is this you? Wait, okay. So everybody.
You, Matt Gaetz, you got to have $1 million. I hope you ain't spending on young girls, but you got to have $1 million, and that's my money. Give my money back, Matt.
Right.
Give my money back, because every dollar is our money. Nah, that's a false. That's a false. I think we know it's a false thing. I mean, let's talk about it. I mean, let's talk about it.
I never operate in the personal. Like, I pay school taxes for kids I don't have.
How about that?
Never once complained about it. I pay a lot of taxes. I pay an enormous amount of taxes, and I never complain about it, because what that means is that, first of all, the hard work that I put in has paid off. I'm not looking for shelters. I'm not looking for, some sort of scammy way to hide my money. I'm not looking for sovereignty, so I can go to jail for several years from now.
Right.
And I do believe, I do believe that, we should have sovereignty, Black people, but there's a process to that as well. And, and it starts with
spaces like this one that we can have and make on our way to the other ones.
Yes, I mean,
the nation state is eroding, y'all. That day will come. Some of us may live to see it, but in the meantime, are we prepared for when that day comes? Because when California says 2035, no more cars that burn gas in the state, these hillbillies are going to sue, and they're going to lose, because Clean Air Act gives them that power. But guess what? It may not be no United States in 2050, because California can break off. The Northeast states can cluster. And I'm saying, but in the meantime, when that happens, and it's going to happen, trust. When it happens, are we ready for what comes next? Because that's when you get a chance to build the society you want to be in. This thing ain't got to stay together for that. In fact, the United States of America, arguably, for those of us who live in the U.S. in this conversation, is probably the biggest impediment to human progress, because we're carrying places where whole ass racists love it, and they rely on the things staying together for them to continue to hide their criminal enterprise. If you walk away from it, and this ain't the first time, when you read Richard Crichton's book, Break It Up, he goes in detail. He says the unifying thread of American history is dissension and secession, not unity. Not unity. Over the slavery question, when Lord Garrison and them boys like, just let them go. Why we can foment rebellions in the South, and the northern states don't need to continue to prop these cats up. It's coming. So to your observation, sovereignty, and we talked about sovereignty before, sovereignty is a recent concept in the human imagination, and there are many ways to be sovereign. This is a sovereign space. And in fact, where I found myself, Prof, I don't know if you experienced this last week when you went back into the formal classroom in terms of the university system. I know I've been experiencing it. When you be around people who are free, you forget how to talk guardedly. You know what I'm saying? It's certain things I'm like, I'm good. I ain't got to worry about y'all. Not that I was ever guarded like that.
Say,
but it changes the way you think.
As I said to my students, I don't think I haven't code switched since I was 23. Right?
Word, facts.
I haven't, you know, guarded my speech, which is why, you know, I'm not where some people are right now. But, you know, if you live your life in comparison, you're going to always be disappointed. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be at the time that I'm supposed to be here. And being free this long has made me, as I was saying to you off mic, prepared in another kind of way for all that is to come. And I actually enjoy a jab or two.
No question.
Yes,
I give them a little bit. So yeah, the student loan thing, I think. But before we get to that, I do want to mark, because I think that, and I want to use this as an example of classroom and what it means. You know, Jacques Berliner-Blau a few years ago wrote a book called Campus Confidential. He's a professor at Georgetown, and one of the things he says is, you know, we have to be careful when we're in classrooms, because as he used this phrase I thought was interesting. He said, there are often truly unfortunate things that are said in classrooms, meaning that students in particular will say things in unguarded moments that, you know, young people will say. And in attempting to grapple with ideas and kind of guide the space in some ways, professors will say things that are truly unfortunate. But one of the things Professor Berliner-Blau says is, he says those things have to happen because they are human things. That's what the learning experience involves. The minute we start trying to be artificial is the minute we mess up. But of course, in the social structure educational system we find ourselves in, it is often we censor ourselves. It's another reason why in the Nubia space that we have established and now continue to build in momentum is so valuable, because we can have serious conversations in ways that, you know, generosity has to be at the center of our conversation. We have to be generous with each other. So
there's a scripture out of the overflow of the heart. And I think a lot of us need to check our heart condition, as Reverend Barber would say. America has a heart condition. You know, to have a pure heart, whatever that means. Even the quote unquote misspeaking that some of us do, there's an opportunity to learn. Sometimes you have to hear things out loud and then have it bounce back to you to say, that's stupid, or like, why did I say that, or why do I think that? To have the freedom to be able to do that, I think, is paramount to our development as human beings, right? So
that's right.
To always worry, all right, if I say this is gonna, because you don't know. But if your heart is pure, meaning I have no ill will, I have no ill intention, I'm not trying to hurt anybody, I'm not, you know, hurt people. So like, let me do the work to not be that person. But I'm truly learning, like, you know, as things evolve and what's offensive and what's not. And if the goal is to not offend, okay, I can change my language. All right, I said something that offended you. I'm processing it. Yes, you probably shouldn't be offended, but okay, can I say it differently so I'm not offending you until you work your thing out?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can. It doesn't hurt me to change up my language. So, and
sometimes you can't, though. Sometimes no matter what you say, it's going to be offensive because of it.
That person's in deep pain and needs
to
do a thing. And then you eradicate that person from your life if you can. But I think a lot of it is our hearts a lot of people walk around with really bad hearts. So they so long, you know, hidden. And so now they don't even know how to communicate in a framework that's not phony. I love it here.
Phony. I love it here too. And that actually, yeah, that's the example. That's that learning space. And this is why I said, you know, here we are near the end of Black August. And we talked about Black August a number of times, and we'll continue to talk about Black August. Free all political prisoners, create a different society. Never forget those who made the ultimate sacrifice on this side of existence, paying with their lives, and never forget those who continue to be incarcerated and locked down in a society that is so hell-bent on exterminating itself, beginning with those of African descent in so many ways, and in indigenous people. So here we are near the end, and you know, I was kind of joking, but not really. I was talking to our friend and sister Shana Terrell, who works at the Center for Black Educator Development, our brother Sharif El-Mekki, trying to recruit Black teachers. Now, I'll tell this to student loans as we talk a little bit more. We were talking about Black August this week, and and I said, and she mentioned Michael Jackson. She said, Daddy Carr, we're gonna have to do a whole time. We're just gonna talk about Michael Jackson one day. It just came up. And so I said, Shayna, check, look it up right quick. When was Michael Jackson born? And she looked and said, August 29th. Yeah, I mean, it's just coincidence, Black August. But it made me think about it because, and those, everybody here, whether you're in Nubia now or later on watching, what's your favorite Michael Jackson song? This is what I'm saying. Now, I'm bringing it up because bringing up Michael Jackson, maybe about 3 or 4 years ago, before COVID, maybe the year before COVID, caused a truly unfortunate moment for me. This was when I was still co-teaching with Dana Williams, the freshman seminar course at Howard. And let me pause and thank Reuben Patterson, the dean of the College of Arts and Sciences, and whoever other administrators were that took that from us and destroyed that method. And also thanks to the person who couldn't say with her whole chest in public what she said in the meeting, which was this class was too Afrocentric. Shout out to you, because I want to thank you all for freeing me up. Although I will miss being able to bring to these young people the elders, many of whom now are ancestors, whether it be Eleanor Traylor or Toby Benjamin. Eleanor Traylor still with us. Toby Benjamin, an ancestor. Kane Hope Felder, Leslie Fenwick, Lisa Crooms Robinson, so many others over the years. Alton Pollard. I'm thinking about all the young, Jules Harrell, Mario Beatty, so many others. Kolab Mbola, Segun Badageshin, James Donaldson, over the years at the Medford. I'm thinking about these are master teachers who young people got to be introduced to and interact with, and we would have them read books, and then the authors would come. So over the years, and Nguyen Thiong'o, Wale Soyinka, so many others involved. But now that's all over, and because they decided, well, that was too Black. And I understand, because you're scared. Don't be scared, but be scared. Don't matter, because we know that the HBCUs don't belong to any one individual, any one faculty member, any one teacher. They belong to us, and they're in trust for us. And there are many ways to overrun the blackface whiteness in many of these things. This was a fight for the Black university in the 60s and 70s, but that's a backdrop. When we were still doing it, and we did it for about 15 years, we had the momentum, and then inherited it from previous generation. But now they've thrown it into full reverse. I don't know what the hell they're doing now. But it was about maybe 4 years ago. I would give a talk near the beginning of the semester. This was a class, 50 minutes. And we had all the freshmen in the College of Arts and Sciences, which meant sometimes that would be as many as 1,400 or plus students. Well, there's no classroom that can hold 1,400. So we had to be in Crampton Auditorium. Shout out to Kim Banks and Brother Pat and TJ and all the folks who run Crampton Auditorium. As usual at these institutions, it is the people who do that work, the staff, that make everything possible. So we split them up. So we would have a 50-minute session on Tuesday nights. I was responsible for leading that conversation and getting out of the way as we brought in our group projects and people coming in, talking, interacting. And Dr. Williams did Wednesday afternoons. So we set up the time so students could pick one of the two, depending on their schedule, and then we slot them in. So 700 one night, 700 one afternoon. Well, on the day that I gave a talk that I had given variations of, and they're floating around. In fact, I may even bring that over into Nubia, into narrative. It's out there on YouTube. I did several over the years. They've been posted. One was called the title was always Learning Wisdom and African World Experiences, because we're going to ground these young people coming into a Black college into the long genealogy of Africana thinking traditions, which begin, of course, with the beginning of humanity. So I would begin that discussion every time I gave it, as the students were coming into the auditorium, and they loved this because I always play music. It could be John Coltrane. It could be Nina Simone. I opened class this past Tuesday with Black Thought versus Everybody, which is one of my favorites. And then, of course, on Thursday, I did Teddy Pendergrass singing Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, Wake Up Everybody. So at any rate, that kind of thing. So you can imagine coming to the auditorium, and I would have playing on the screen as the students would come in. Remember the time, Michael Joseph Jackson. Do you remember the time when we fell in love? And of course, that video, John Singleton, I guess, directed. You got Magic Johnson, you've got Iman playing Nefertiti, you got Mike in the middle of it, you got Tiny Lister, you got all these folks, Eddie Murphy playing Ramses, I suppose, Ramses Gloss. And I would use that as a point of entry for two reasons. Number one, you know, whatever Michael Jackson was or wasn't, in terms of cultural meaning making, he grounds a moment in time and space. The cultural meaning making category. What art, what music, what texts and practices did Africans create in this moment to mark their moment in time and space? So for decades, Michael Jackson, born 64 years ago on August 29th, he also represents, in terms of movement and memory, these anchors on how we did or do remember this experience. And I resisted the urge to go and pull all my Michael Jackson books, and I have all of them. There's one in particular that Richard Lecourc and Francois Allard edited a few years ago called, what's it called? Michael Jackson, All the Lyrics. If you get your hands on that book, it's all the lyrics of all the Michael Jackson songs, the backdrops, the context, who wrote stuff. You know, he was very proud of the fact that I think Don't Stop Till You Get Enough. That was the first one he said he wrote completely just him. 1979, of course, Off the Wall. And I would play Remember the Time. So I had it playing, and it was always interesting. These are a bunch of 18-year-olds. Every year, without fail, you get these hundreds of young people playing. And so I would time it. The class started at 6:10 p.m. So I would start the video because we needed every one of them 50 minutes. I would usually I would have music playing before that. You know, the Intruders. I like that old school stuff, right? Didn't I blow your mind this time? This kind of thing. And young people come in, sometimes they would say, this seems like walking in my grandma's house. Yeah, because energy is a vibe. Cultural meaning making. You want that. So I would start the video usually about 6:06 because it's longer than 4 minutes, but it would ease in, and by then everybody was there. So they would come in, they come in, now you see them, and they up watching, they kind of moving, dancing. And then Michael Jackson, of course, because you know the thing starts with a kind of narrative, right? Then Jackson starts singing. You know, do you remember when we fell in love? We were young and innocent then. These are 18-year-olds. Do you remember? You know, these are young people. You weren't there. You were not there when Remember the Time was recorded. That's from the Dangerous album, 1991. And I did pull a little book Susan Fast wrote. Not really, but she wrote a little book called Dangerous, right? She says Dangerous is the album that you want to get to see another change in Michael Jackson, 1991. Not bad, not off Thriller, not Off the Wall, not with the Jackson 5. But when you think about it, you know, you have In the Closet on there. Something about you, baby, that makes me want to give it to you. And I'm saying, why do you choose that song? She writes about all that. Remember the Time, of course. Heal the World, Black or White. People kind of obsess on black or white, but one of the theses that Fast proposes, she says, while people were talking about Michael Jackson and mutilating his face and skin, his music was always black, and it seemed like it got blacker. Now, if you've ever seen the video for, you know, all I want to say is that they don't really care about us. There are two versions. One's in the prison, and the other's in Brazil, in the streets of Brazil with Olodum, which is one of the music groups, social groups, governance structure groups in Brazil. And so, you know, when I think about that, Dangerous, you know, all those kind of things, as I'm playing Remember the Time, when he gets to the point where the dancers come out, you know, Big Les and all them and all the dancers, and you got them all, you know, and as I explained to them later, you know, Michael Jackson did more for breaking down and assaulting the wall that the Egyptians were not black than probably anybody in the history of U.S. popular culture, maybe global popular culture. Why? Because Michael Jackson made everybody black in that video. And it was a very deliberate choice across the color range. So when he's like, do you remember, girl, in the park, on the scene, you and me, what about us, girl? You see these 18-year-olds singing word for word something that they weren't even alive when it was published, and then they all start doing the same dance moves, right? You know how you do the dance. I'm like, and it would never cease to amaze me. That's movement and memory. How did or do Africans remember this experience? Anyway, that ain't even the whole point of it. So now we'll get into the conversation I wanted to have, learning wisdom and Africana world experiences. And I would talk about a great deal of other things. And I would bring in another piece of that video and show it. And then, but it wasn't even about Remember the Time. During the conversation part, because I would talk, It's a 50-minute class. Somewhere around quarter till, I try to leave at least 15 minutes, sometime more. We would have conversations, 700 people. So we had microphones and, so let's talk. And we had it set up so they could tweet and we could project it so people could, we want to engage them. How do you teach a large class? You don't teach a large class if you never taught a large class. There's a lot of trial and error, a lot of unfortunate work over a decade and a half. We got to that point. And now to have thrown all that in the trash is a tremendous and almost exquisite display of ignorance. But I understand what animates it. You don't think we can win. And I understand. You got to do that because you got to be afraid, be very afraid. But at any rate, so a young lady gets up, comes to the microphone, and says, before we talk about anything else, I want to talk about why would you show Michael Jackson when he's a child molester? Truly unfortunate thing sitting in the classroom. I paused. Now, if you're a teacher, here's the challenge. Generosity of spirit. This is a young person. This is a human being. And you got to hear that. You have to internalize it. You have to respond in that moment, which you only have a split second because a lot of people in here. And in that moment, the energy cannot shift from this momentum that we've developed in terms of this grounding in memory to this kind of response to this serious allegation, serious assertion, because that will be all it becomes about. And we weren't talking about any of that. So in that moment, I said, that is an important question. And I don't divide a person from their craft. Some need to think about what you said. And rather than go through the litany of trials, which of course I could very prepared to go through, even at that moment, I hadn't thought about that as a question, but I could have gone through, the chronology of the trials and all this kind of thing. But that's not really what that question was about. In fact, I don't even really know what that question is about. Was this about something that happened to you? And again, you got to remember, this is somebody's common humanity. We're having this conversation. I said, you know what? This is what I'm going to do. Between tonight, Monday night, and tomorrow, Tuesday afternoon, I'm going to think about that. And I'm going to rewrite my talk. And I said, do you have 50 minutes on tomorrow afternoon, 12:10 to 1, when we do the second class session, which usually I get the same talk twice. Everybody does, about 5 of us. And then we open up, we do a common text. We read Barracoon. We read, as I said, Something Torn and New, so many other books. And we have a group project. But I said, I'm going to change everything. I heard what you said. I'm going to think about that. So overnight, I stayed up, labored with that. And I came back, still played Remember the Time, and changed my whole conversation to ask the question of how we use celebrities as teachers and why we use celebrities as teachers and how somebody like Michael Jackson becomes a teacher for people who never come into universities. I'm coming to student debt. I am. There's a squeak of my old chairs. It breaks apart because this chair has let me see if I can find this. I think I put this in my bag. I just picked this up a couple of weeks ago. Is this? Yeah, here we go. Grant Farid, who is interested in academia. He just wrote a book called Only a Black Athlete Can Save Us Now. He's been writing these little books out of the University of Minnesota Press, these little idea books, not very long, just a little over 100 pages. And he's raising this question. He says about athletes, he says, only a Black athlete can save us now. It uses sport as a point of departure to argue that the dystopic crisis of our current moment offers a singular opportunity to reimagine how we live in the world. Okay, that's cute. But he's coming with the point of entry. He's asking the question, how come athletes have to become the social spokespeople? Because in this society, and he's not saying this, I'm saying this, in the social structure we live in, Black people run, jump, sing, entertain. So any commentary on the conditions of African people, those are the most visible people to the social structure. So what that has done is bleed into our governance formation. So we start listening to ball players and singers on social movements. That is utterly absurd. However, the social structure has kind of commanded that. Now here come Michael Joseph Jackson, his brothers and sisters out of Gary, Indiana. And they burst upon the scene out of a self-determining space, a Motown space, and then ultimately, beyond that, overflow the boundaries of that and insert themselves in social structure, not just in the U.S., but the world. And Michael, of course, at the center of that. Well, now anything come out his mouth is going to be listened to. And as people are filling up, and I'm gonna look in the chat in a minute to see who got their favorites. You know, when you hear him, I think about another sister who made transition in my hometown of Nashville, actually, the great Donna Summer, who I always, you know, who's all in love with Donna Summer as children. When you hear she works hard for the money, you know, people say that's an empowerment anthem. That's an empowerment anthem. But then when you hear Slave to the Rhythm, she dances in these sheets at night. She dances to his needs. This is Michael Jackson. She dances till he feels just right until he falls asleep. I'm saying, do you hear Michael Jackson? Now everybody dancing and they singing. She dances at the crack of dawn and quickly cooks his food. How many of us, and by us I mean y'all, you know, black women, she can't be late, can't take too long. The kids must go to school. She's a slave to the rhythm. That's beyond she worked hard for the money. She's a slave to the rhythm, slave to the rhythm of love, rhythm of love. She's a slave to the rhythm. We're all slaves to the rhythm of this social structure. But if you are a woman, Michael Jackson, did he molest? Was he a pedophile? Was he fascinated with little boys? Hold on. And when I said that next day, and then after the conversation was over, and I won't go into the conversation I said because it was a whole lot more to it. I mean, I really got into this whole thing. And I focused in part when I was talking about Michael Jackson, I took a quote from Wesley Snipes, who was with him when they shot the Bad video. They were in South Africa. And he said, I came into Michael Jackson's room and he was surrounded with books. You know, Michael Jackson is reported, and Prince was reported to have large collections of African-American, African diaspora history books. Jackson had this big collection. And Wesley Snipes says, I came in, what are you doing? I'm reading Autobiography of Malcolm X, all these other books. And I'm taking a direct quote. And then I'm talking about how Wesley Snipes said, for Michael Jackson, it's very important that the history and culture get into his music because everybody was looking at him. I'm saying this is a complicated conversation. Now that led to a whole nother thing because when I finished at noon, because in the middle of the day, nobody's in the auditorium. I was in there. We were in there for another couple of hours because those students who I had said, y'all here on Monday night when this question was asked and we having this conversation, I told y'all I'm going to do my best to think through this. And then tomorrow we're going to have this conversation. I said, if y'all got time tomorrow, come on back. A lot of those students came back. And then the students who were there on Wednesday hadn't been there Monday night. But of course, these young people in the group meets and they on social media. So of course, the conversation that overflowed the boundaries of the literal place. And we tape it. Right. So they're there anticipating. And I stayed with those students for as long as they wanted. And as long as not as long as I wanted, I'd have been there until it's time for my class over to law school at 6 p.m. But we're in there having conversations, and including the young sister who asked that question, she was satisfied. We didn't see eye to eye ultimately on several things, but it wasn't because we didn't have the generosity of spirit or the love for each other. The rhythm of love, thinking about Michael Jackson. But what I really came to in that conversation was, you know, and I asked them, I said, how many of y'all in elementary school or junior high school or high school marched into your ceremony, your move-up ceremony if you're in junior high school or middle school, elementary school, your pretend graduation ceremony, and high school, your graduation ceremony last year? How many of you marched into I'm that star up in the sky? Yeah. I'm the world's greatest. I'm that little bit of hope. They look. How many of y'all sang that song in the talent show? I am a tall tree. Oh, I am. Anybody ask you who I am? Are you serious right now, Rob? If anybody asks you who you are, stand up straight, look them in the eye and say, a convicted. Wait, no. But you didn't say that. I say, now, here's the thing. In the street, you say, I don't listen to R. Kelly's music. At home, you never stopped. If you're telling the truth. The question is, why can't you say that in the street? because it is unacceptable and should be unacceptable. Michael Jackson tried, quit it, settled. Okay, why he settled? The guy's a public figure. We will never know the full scope. However, we know the social structure. If they're involved, they're not there to help you. They're there to interfere. And so whether it be, if they say why, tell them that it's human nature. Why? Come on, I want y'all to think about these lyrics again. I'm looking at the man in the mirror. I'm saying I'm not caping for Michael Jackson, but what I am doing, coming back to my young sister Ariel, who is a poet, she always talking to me about, and us about, her teachers about writing in, and she's an Africana studies major, and she studied Egyptian hieroglyphs. So to watch this young person absorb all this from the streets of St. Louis, and I mean literally the streets of hood St. Louis, I mean brilliant young person, to see her absorb that and then make it her own. She's always talking about what the Egyptians would call the economy of language. As Ayikwe Arma says, use the best of words. Don't use all the words. As Shegun Badageshin told me and taught me. And his young protege, Kola Abambola, whose father, Wande Abambola, is one of the great Babalaos, and Kola himself is a Babalao. And as they used to give this talk to the freshmen in College of Arts and Sciences, called Omoluabi, the whole idea of being generosity and being a person of community, they would always say, you know, to say a thing, you don't have to use up all the words in your mouth. The economy of language. Poets understand that very well. Musicians understand that very well. Michael Jackson is seen by everybody. And he's putting into the lyrics, which seem very simple as you're dancing and thinking, but they also resonate right here. And it isn't just the love songs. It's not just She's Out of My Life, or it's not just Ben. He's singing to a rat. You need to listen. You know, Quincy Jones, I want to work with this cat. Why? Because he's singing, you can't win. You can't break even. You can't get out of the game. Now, some of y'all gonna leave here and go play Michael Jackson the rest of the weekend. I know how it works. You understand? As Howard Thurman said, when you reduce ideas to a rote repetition, they can become dogma. Once they become dogma, they are dead. It was Howard Thurman, the theologian, talking about religion, really, when he was talking about that. He said, so the only way an idea can really spread, a deep idea that resonates from within with us as we hear it and engage it, is through what he said, contagion. It spreads through contagion. So I know, you know, Michael Jackson, contagious. I know, I understand. So, but don't stop till you get enough. But the whole point is that as we were talking, we came to this kind of understanding of the power of speech, the power of music, the power of the jolly. The French will call it griots, the music with the speech. And then listening to Ariel the other day, we sitting around talking, and me and Hailey and some other folks sitting around, and Christina Joy, one of the booksellers at Sankofa, we sitting in the back having this conversation. She's walking us through her visual art. She's showing, you know, as I said, Professor Ruffin, her portfolio, and she's grappling with this concept of how do I communicate, and how do I communicate what I'm experiencing that is what we experience. Now, student loans. The hell has any of that got to do with student loans? These conversations I'm talking about right now, the one that took place in the freshman seminar, the now defunct freshman seminar, sitting there with Ariel and them, you know where they took place? They took place on, and in the case of the one we had talking about the economy of language, just off at Sankofa, a university campus. How it costs over $50,000 a year to go to school. So this child I'm talking to taking out student loans. And on Thursday morning, after the announcement from the President of the United States that if you make less than $125,000 a year, or if you're in a household where the income is less than $250,000 a year, you can have up to $10,000 of your student debt forgiven. And that may not seem like a lot. We're going to come to that in a second. And if you are Pell Grant eligible, and over 40% of the people in the United States who take out loans who are Pell Grant eligible, in other words, you can get your tax money back to apply to going to school. And shout out to the great Adam Clayton Powell, an architect of that. Well, 40% of those people are of African descent. Over 40% of those people are of African descent. So if you are Pell Grant eligible, you can get up to $20,000 of your debt retired. Well, the bottom line then becomes, the question becomes, number one, why did you go to school? And also, not only why did you go to school, but, you know, what do you want to do with that degree? And what are you trying to do with that degree? So when I'm looking at a young person like Ariel, who's Pell Grant eligible, like I was in Nashville, Tennessee State, but from 1983 to 1987, when I was an undergraduate at Tennessee State, tuition was less than $1,000 a semester. In fact, it might have been $1,000 a year, because I worked my way through school. And as I told young people, I told them this last week on Thursday, when we, in my Education in Black America class, I had built in time, flexible time, because as you say, the thing, changes. I said, we're going to spend this morning talking about this Biden plan, and I want y'all to help me understand some things, because tonight I've got to go talk to a group called the Howard Hampton Morgan State Alliance. It is an alliance of educators and educational administrators from Howard, Hampton, Morgan State, the Community College of Rhode Island, Prince George's Community College, the University of District of Columbia Community College, and there's one other, Thomas Nelson Community College. They meet like yearly. And shout out to Kamala Darnell, who runs that program out of Howard, Dana Williams, the Dean of the Graduate School, again, my co-teaching partner for many years in freshman seminar. But they gather on Howard's campus and other places annually to discuss how to recruit more teachers into these institutions, building the teacher pipeline. And they asked me just about every year to give a talk, and they asked me to give the keynote address Thursday night on the topic of the value of HBCUs. Fellow citizens, to quote Frederick Douglass, why do you ask me here today? I've been growing wild in Nubia for so long. I mean, I still perform my duties. I teach my classes. I teach more students than anybody at Howard. I mean, I'm there, and I'm not saying that as a humble brag. I'm saying it to say I do my job now. I'm gonna do my job, but I'm doing it now in a way that is oriented around the fact that, as our brother Freddie Haynes said at Jeremiah Wright's retirement sermon in May of this year on the campus of Howard University, literally outside under the sky. He said, Dr. Carr, now you are involved in a process where we're all now learning and exchanging and teaching. I say, man, look, it's an honor to be in that space, because this is the renewed normal. The higher education is not normal. It was set up, as I was having this conversation Wednesday night with my law students. We read a little piece from a book by James Brundage called let me see if I have it. I'll show it to you. Yeah, why not? Because it's sitting right here. I had the book. It's called The Medieval Origins of the Legal Profession. I want them to know, because law students generally don't learn the history of where the law schools came from and the law as a Western concept comes from. It comes from the church. Well, what also came from the church was the university system. The idea that you got a teacher, they talk to you, you write stuff down, spit it back at them, and then they bring you into the club, licensure, right? Well, we're not going to change that overnight. We may never change it in the Western structure. It may just have to collapse. But since this is the structure we live in the social structure, we find ourselves caught up in it in order to advance our interests. And this is where I'm going with this and tying it to student loans. On Thursday morning, I told them I got to go talk to this alliance tonight. I'll be back on campus at 6. But this morning, I want to ask you all about these student loans, and I want to ask you about what that means in the real life, in your real life experiences. I know what it would mean for me if I still owed money after all these years, and I don't. But my loans all together, and I took out a couple of loans, but it was more for a cushion. And as I tell young people, if you got to take out loans your first year in college, go ahead, do what you need to do. By the way, this loan forgiveness applies to Parent Plus loans. And we know some of y'all know about that Parent Plus loan because you signed it. Meaning what? You paying your child's debt, and some of y'all still got student debt from your years. So this becomes a difficult thing to manage. In other words, this ain't no small thing that happened. It ain't the 50,000. Listen, I'm with Nina Turner. I am with Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley and so many others who pressed for the Progressive Caucus and the CBC as well, who pressed for 50,000, some of them, many of them. I'm with that. But let's be clear. 10 to 20 ain't no small thing. If you're Pell eligible, this was calibrated to help you the most. But anyway, as I tell these young people, bust your ass, get that 4.0 if you can your first year, and then go look for that scholarship money from the institution if they have some. Get that money, and because that's what I did. I wasn't a great student coming out of high school. Now, and the high school system is completely broken. I mean, in fact, I might as well stop there and pause and evoke a book that just came out that and I'm going to talk about that in the context of something else in a minute. Well, I thought I had it here. Maybe I don't. Gary Orfield's book that I thought I had it. Anyway, not important. The thesis of this book is that this system is broken, and in order to fix it, it's going to take radical restructuring, and debt is how this thing has exploded. And the debt isn't about the government obligation. It's about these private lenders and these other people who are making money off of this social structure that has you thinking you have to go to college, get a degree, you got to get licensure and all that. Anyway, to the point. Thursday morning, you know, everybody heard the news. So what we did was read through the president's remarks, the United States remarks. And what we did was also flesh out the implications of that. Let's talk about that a little bit. What this actually means. The big news, the news of the week. Unfortunately, the news of the week wasn't what's going on in Ethiopia. The conflicts have resumed. Prayers to all of the folks in Ethiopia, Eritrea, all the battles that are going on in the Tigray region of Ethiopia. You know, there was a place bomb yesterday. Some children were killed. You know, where the hell is the United States on this? On the United States' side. They don't give a damn about Africans. In Haiti, they're in protest. They're saying that Henri, the prime minister, must go, stooge, puppet. And in the United States, they're saying we should have a special envoy. No, y'all made the mess. I agree with my colleague, Mama Pierre, out there at UCLA, Haitian sister, who's like, look, this is some BS. And, you know, all my friends with the Black Alliance for Peace, y'all invaded Haiti and you ain't never left. So that wasn't the news of the week. The news of the week wasn't even them California emissions vehicles. But the news of the week was the debt here in the United States and forgiving of debt. Most people don't go to college. And people often say, well, a college degree is what a high school degree used to be if you want to do something. And we got to have jobs. I saw Amy Klobuchar talking to that all over the place, white nationalist, South white nationalist Bill Maher last night. I don't understand. I paid my student loans. Nobody give a damn about you, Bill. Trust and believe. Nobody gives a damn. Who do you speak for? Everybody. Every GD body. Anyway, the point is that in walking through it with these young people, we go in chapter and verse through the proposal. The 10 and 20,000 people know that. Here's something that blew their minds. If this is either automatically applied, which will be to a lot of accounts, to your student debt, or you have to update your information or input your information so the government can find you and apply this money, it automatically, if you are in default, it automatically restores you to good standing, at which point you can negotiate a new payment plan schedule. Wait, what? I said, you know how many Negroes is in default on their student loans? And just because somebody gonna put something on it, what if they owe a whole lot of money? That ain't the point. They're now back in the game to be able to perhaps make enough payments in a row to be able to finance and get a car or a house. House is the thing you want, right? So that's a piece. Wow. The other piece is debt servicing. The payments that will go to your payments could go to the principal, because the government now, Biden is saying, you know, what the proposal includes is that either the government will pay the interest, so you can go after the principal, which will take your full payment down. Now, why is all that important? I've just said it. There are poles. This is where I want to go with this, is to kind of wind this up. We are between the poles on a spectrum here, with two poles on opposite sides of this question of education. Let's think about this ways of knowing. Let's go to our ways of knowing category from in our Africana Studies framework. Ways of knowing category asks the question, how did or do people of African descent think about the world, think about each other, think about reality, think about the nature and purpose of being? We don't say religion, we don't say philosophy. We're coming up with different language. And again, Monday night, I'd never been in a situation like that before. I rewrote my entire syllabus for the Howard class, and that's just the extension of what we're doing. What we're doing is really the reformulation. And so nobody in this space that we're mounting this Africana Studies class is going to be taking a class. We're going to be participating in the class. I'm participating too. And it is, you know, I'm always thinking and rewriting and trying to rethink, but this has taken a quantum leap because this is us. This is us, even beyond the spaces that we say are us, right? So the ways of knowing category asks that question. It's really tied to governance. Who are we to each other? How does it free us? So to what purpose is education? What is the purpose of education? This is where I'm going with this and how I'm tied this to student debt. On one end of the spectrum, you have everybody, every human being. The ways of knowing. We're all being educated all the time. Asa used to say this all the time. Asa Hill used to always say this. He would say, you know, human beings are constantly learning. We were learning from the moment of conception. You know, when you see us, we're looking at the egg and sperm of our parents. You know, that learning began when those two things combined out of billions of different possibilities to create what we are. And that thing is learning. Now, that don't mean Ron DeSantis and Chinless Tom Cotton and shovel mouth bastard Greg Abbott and the rest of y'all. That don't mean that you can use that as a way to try to control the bodies of women because you want them to be a slave to your rhythm. She dances for the man and who works her overtime. She can't be rude. Remember Michael Jackson? At work, he takes it from home to work. She can't be rude as she said, sir, I must be home tonight. She's a slave to the rhythm. Do you know that most of the debt held by college students of African descent in the United States is held by Black women? She's a slave to the rhythm. You know how many of my students, how many of y'all, how many of us worked their way through college and then had to work to start trying to pay these damn student loans back? How many of y'all waited tables? How many of y'all like me work fast food? I'm a proud graduate of Crystal's, Arby's, Wendy's. I work fast food. Since high school, I work fast food, right? In high school, it was all fun and games. First year of college, I got to pay this tuition. My mom busts her ass every day of her life. My father busts his ass every day of his life. I'm proud of that. What James Turner, the new ancestor, called the laboring class. I am proud of that. It's not an advancement for me to be the first in my family to go to college. My brother and sister to have college degrees. It's not an advancement. It's a tool. Because what you don't want from the university is this medieval European concept that somehow I'm better than you because I walked through here, said, Mother, may I, and they put a robe on me and gave me a rolled up ass piece of paper. And now I'm coming home telling you what it is. At one end of the continuum is everybody. Education. What is the purpose? The Egyptians would say, train your replacement. The purpose of education is to enter society as a productive person in society. That's why African people had rites of passage to show, now you ready for this? Here's some more responsibility. Why? Because we need everybody, every GD body. We need everybody. So every human, as Asa would say, always learning, coming into that space. This is some of what I talked about on Thursday night. But again, I started Thursday night with Thursday morning with my young people in the Education in Black America class as we walked through this Biden plan and they began to reveal to me the challenges they've had in funding their education. Because guess what? It costs 50 stacks at Howard. It costs 50 stacks at Morehouse and Spelman. At Hampton, it's approaching 50,000. But guess what? The Black state schools, it costs a lot less. A&T, North Carolina A&T, 18,000 for in-state, 32,000 for out-of-state. Tennessee State, my alma mater, 23 stacks for in-state, 36 stacks for out-of-state. Grambling State University, 30 and 45. What the hell's going on? But guess where it costs even less? Prince George's Community College, I was sitting there talking with the dean before I got up and gave my remarks Thursday night. 25,000 for in-person, in-state, 27 for out-of-state. Tidewater Community College, Virginia, 22 and 27 respectively. Community College of Rhode Island, 22 and 29 respectively. University of District of Columbia Community College, about 24,000. In other words, half of Howard, half or less than Spelman and Morehouse. And I asked the young people, I said, now, how many of y'all were told by your families and parents, your communities, that you couldn't go to no Black colleges? This is one of them four. Howard, Morehouse, Spelman, and maybe Hampton or Fisk. I was amazed at the number. I wasn't amazed at all, but I was, because it's a safe space. Sometimes truly unfortunate things are said in the classroom, but it's not truly unfortunate because they unburden themselves. Yeah, that's what my mama told me. Yeah, that's what my daddy told me. Yes, what my family told me. They could come. They changed their mind and said, okay, you can go to Howard, but that's the only HBC you can go to. You can go to Howard or Spelman. I'm only two. You can go to Howard or Morehouse. I'm only two. I know what they say. Why? Because class. What will this look like to the social structure? I'm a field Negro. I went to one of them HBCU field Negro schools. You understand? The brother who's the dean at Prince George's Community College, we were laughing. He went to Winston-Salem State. I went to Tennessee State. I said, we field Negroes. But when you give loan forgiveness to a student who got an associate's degree at a community college, that's going to put a huge chunk in their debt. And if they're Pell eligible, it might wipe it out completely. In fact, what this loan forgiveness will do for Pell eligible people who are eligible for up to $20,000 a year, it was going to wipe out of, what they say, about 43 million people this program can apply to. Over half those people, their debt going to be completely wiped out. And people saying, I ain't go to school. Well, you know what? Hell, you can go to hell. Because what you don't understand is that you won't have a society if people don't have certain skills. Klobuchar is telling Bill Maher the other night, I would like to have it tailored so that we could actually have loan forgiveness most for people who are in fields and where they have skills that we need to go for those jobs. I understand, Amy, but you can be quiet. Because part of living is aspiration in life. What do you want to be? I'm coming to this. In fact, I'm going to keep layering this out because it ain't enough, but it's something, and it's more than just a little bit. So these young people are telling me that. Then I asked them this: how many of y'all transferred credits into Howard? A number of them. Now, this Education in Black America class, I got about 100 kids in that class. So we're talking. Student after student, they transfer. I'm not just talking about AP or IB credits, those you not in the United States, international baccalaureate or advanced placement credits. This is the top of the food chain kind of stuff in terms of how they organize high school learning. No, I'm talking about either they got an associate's degree from a community college while they were in high school, like one of my young nieces, and not by blood, but by relations, because her parents, Aya and Kennelly out of Texas, y'all know Aya, they set up, Kosi was over there helping set up the library in a Popo town a few weeks ago when we saw them, right? Kosi got an associate's degree while she was in high school. So she transferred enough credits in to be a first semester junior almost. Because, 30 credits puts you into a year worth of college. So if you got an associate's degree, you might have as many as 60 credits, and that might put you into a junior status. You just knocked off 2 years worth of value in terms of having to pay tuition and room and board. And a number of these students were also in my class. They were also dual enrolled. So they didn't get degrees, but they did take college credits. A couple of them, one young sister, she did her work. She's from Georgia. And I love it because, you hear the accents. Yes, sir. I went to Savannah State. Another Georgian unmuted herself, said, yeah, I went to Fort Valley. I said, oh yeah, Fort Valley. We're going to read about Fort Valley in that class a little bit later. We talk about the struggle over Fort Valley in the early 20th century, John Davis. And I love that Education in Black America class because I get to learn about education in Black America. Where else you going to learn about it? And so I asked her, I said, oh yeah, I have a real good friend and classmate. Used to be the dean down there, Berlethia Pitts. She said, I took Dr. Pitts. I said, see, this is why you go to a Black college. You don't go because of the white facing, black skin, white masks kind of stuff that goes on often administratively. You go because the students are there and the young people are there and we are there each other. That's what Holly always reminds me when I'm like, I ain't going back. No, just okay, I got you. All right, no problem. But I'm saying all that to say that network, they transfer credits in 10, 20, 30 credits, 40 credits, 50 credits. All these credits then mean that's money you don't pay. And so what I told them Thursday night was conveying, because what I told the students was when I go in here Thursday night, I'm going to add what y'all talking about to my remarks. What I said to them was, when you come into so-called higher education, the future of higher education isn't the universities. The future of higher education is probably the community colleges. And so this alliance that Howard has with Hampton and Morgan and these community colleges, I said, this is very important because if you're talking about recruiting teachers into this pipeline, then you have to understand that the best value for us is community colleges. And guess who already figured it out? The young people. Now, the step for us, of course, here in Nubia, and the step that we build these platforms, ultimately, imagine when we sign an agreement so that classes that we mount here can count for credit. But do we try to go straight directly to the universities? No, maybe the community colleges might be interesting. Why? Because you know what the tuition is when it goes down to a little bitty fee for a year to be in a space like this, and we can create an assessment dimension and show, and then they can show what they do. Maybe they take a test upon entry and demonstrate. Boom! Wow, this is a problem. Now, of course, that's why they set up accreditation in the early 20th century, SACs, middle states, because guess what? This game is about the hustle, and the hustle in America and in the world, in the modern world system, is capitalism. A lot is about profit generation. As Scott Galloway says, the Harvards, the Stanfords. I read today in Financial Times, Oxford University, and I have a young sister in my law school class who did her last 2 years at Oxford around reparative justice. Brilliant young sister. As I told y'all last week, shout out Sonora, thinking about this whole, concept of reparations. Oxford lost half of its value in its endowment over the last 18 months. That's what Financial Times said this morning. So now they're down to $3 billion. Yeah, because it was $6 billion. And they panicking, $3 billion. Ain't no university, HBCU got $1 billion endowment. Howard's the closest, but everybody else is just dropping off, right? And some schools trying to keep their doors open and may go out of business. This is what we're talking about Thursday night. So as I told these educators Thursday night, with the added momentum of having engaged with the young people around this whole Biden loan forgiveness thing, which opened up a whole conversation about affordability, about college, about the purpose and reason as we think about, again, the ways of knowing category. Why are you even in college? It really reinforced that there is a continuum. So I tie this together. On one end is everybody. On the other end are the people who went to higher education with that desire to help everybody. I'm talking about Black people now. But who get into that system and are affected by it different ways. And let me make that very concrete. Fannie Willis, who is looking for the scalps of every white nationalist who tried to throw the election in 2020 in the United States. And before it's over, may have some. She went to law school. It wasn't free. I don't know Fannie Willis's financial situation, but if it's like my colleagues and many of y'all, you know, I have colleagues all over the country who owe $50,000, $100,000, $150,000, $200,000 or more in college student loan debt, because it ain't just the undergrad degree, it's the JD, it's the MD, it's the MBA, it's the MPH, Master of Public Health, it's the Master of Social Work, the MA, and it's the PhD. Taking out loans, they ain't never going to be out of debt. One of the things that you have to understand in terms of this loan forgiveness thing that Biden talking about, it also attaches to pre-existing things. So after 10 years, you can have your debt forgiven. After 20 years, you can have your debt forgiven, depending on what you're doing. In public service, you can have it forgiven. One of the things in it is he's going to extend the moratorium on payments through the end of the year. Ask Mario Beatty about what that did for them. Because as educators, they were teaching that moratorium got them past the loan forgiveness bar. Once that happened, they could go out and say, oh, we're going to try to buy a house. We're going to put a down payment on a house, buy a house. And they did during the pandemic, during a whole ass pandemic. Why? Because they have been crippled by them student loans, y'all. These are lifelong teachers owing hundreds of thousands of dollars. People had to understand, and these people be like, I don't know about that. I don't give a damn about you. You are a human being. I care about your open humanity. We have a common humanity. Beyond that, everything. Come on. I heard you, Marjorie Taylor Greene, you human joke. You say you are a Christian nationalist, and you should be too. Well, I should be if I believe that you and I share the nation, which we don't. I don't care. It's going to fall apart. And no ex-running back with brain damage is going to help you save it in Georgia. Because we're going to overrun that too. Because just like when you attacked Roe versus Wade and all these white women went out and registered to vote, this student loan piece is going to create some more things. I'm not caping for the Democrats. I'm being pragmatic. We're talking about strategy and tactics. Don't be stupid. Stop treating politics like it's athletics. Stop treating politics like it's music. Treat politics the way you're supposed to treat. You can be enhanced by that stuff, but you need to think. So, on one end of the continuum is everybody. On other end of the continuum are people who have to have the licenses to engage in the intellectual warfare. Fannie Willis is one. Just James in New York is one. You got JD. You're going to take some student loans out. Debt forgiveness is going to enable those who fight for us who need the licenses to do that. Now, that ain't everybody. That ain't nearly everybody. I've seen several op-eds. One was in Time magazine the other day. Somebody say, you know, Black people saying it should have been more because, of course, it won't help me because I make too much. Okay, I understand, but I make too much, but I still have to pay. Get this. Some people $5, some people $6 or more, $100 a month in student loans. Many of my former students at Howard Law School. Man, it's no joke what they have to pay on the monthly. Now, how does this impact all of us? Myself, you, Professor Hunter, all of us in the United States. Now, beyond the United States, we have another kind of conversation. I always have students from the continent, from the Caribbean, those whose parents or who have family, or in the case of law schools, they're coming to get a master's in law and they already have a JD. Some of them matriculated in the University of West Indies system, some of them in West Africa. A sister who was with us, who's also at Prince George Community College, talking to her Thursday night. She's on faculty there. She has 2 degrees from universities in her native Nigeria. and then came here. You know, so she talked about affordability even in the African world. And we know that those opportunities aren't always there because the government subsidizes education, but not for everybody in the same way. It's high stakes testing, Hunger Games of testing. It's a mess. But education should be for everyone. See, that's how you know the United States is not a nation. Y'all griping because somebody else took out loans and they're going to forgive them and you didn't go to school. Well, guess what? Are we all together? Of course we aren't. Because their education should help you, which is where I'm coming to this. Another example, school teachers. Your child go to school. Professor Hunter don't have no biological children. I don't have no biological children, but we are engaged with biological children. When Olivia gets in it, she's at home. She doing homeschool. And a lot of our young people doing homeschool. What we're doing in Nubian Narrative is enhancing that. Think about Lurie and her husband. These curriculum are going to enhance that. In some ways, they can drive that conversation. Again, going back to the African-centered intellectual wars of the 1980s, 90s, 2000s, that some of whom which I participated in, and very grateful and proud to have done that. Ismail Jimenez, by the way, shout out to that young brother. He just got elevated to be the head of social studies for the school district of Philadelphia. He's been working on an African American curriculum in Philadelphia. But at any rate, you know, school teachers in DC, I'm gonna use DC because I'm right here. The new president of Liz Davis made transition, and new president of the DC Teachers Union. I heard her talking yesterday, and she said, you know, we're trying to negotiate a new contract with the District of Columbia. Teachers need to be paid better. There are a lot of work responsibilities they shouldn't have. And that's true. We know teachers, many of y'all teachers, you know, we know overworked, underpaid, this kind of thing. So a sister was having a conversation with her and she said, you know, I'm a substitute teacher. And she said, yeah, I know we support y'all getting unionized too, because the substitutes aren't unionized. Many of y'all substitute teacher, kindergarten through 12th grade, like an adjunct teacher at universities, and increasingly people are adjuncts at universities, underpaid. An adjunct at a university might make $3,500 a class, $4,000 a class, $5,000 a class. Let's say they make $6,000 a class, which they don't. By the way, shout out to the union at Howard and the union at American. Howard in the spring, American just got their new contract. They just broke because they were going on strike. They on strike. They call that now because they just reached some agreement with the university. But why you got to fight so hard with people with all these endowments and all this money coming in, especially black schools, some of the black schools, they got all this George Floyd, Breonna Taylor guilt money, and you won't pay the adjuncts. But anyway, K-12 substitute teachers. In DC, substitute teachers got a raise. They make $20 an hour. So those teachers, many of them, if they don't have another job, they're on unemployment. But of course, when would you have another job? $20 an hour. Do the math. Work 5 days a week. You may be covering this kind of class one day, this kind of class another day. If you're lucky, you're a long-term sub, which means you're in the building for a long, but you might be going from school to school to school, or this school 3 days, this school 4 days, then another school, patching it together, doing that $20 an hour. Now, what do you have? Because if you went into school, you have to have some either certification or emergency certification, and a high school degree ain't gonna cut it. You got a bachelor's degree, student loan. You might have a master's degree, student loans. Some of these substitutes got a PhD, student loans. $10,000 to $20,000, and you probably Pell eligible. $20,000 of Pell eligible application to your student loans. It's gonna put a dent. It ain't gonna be enough. Some of them people owe $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 or more $1,000 a year, $60,000, $70,000. I'm sorry, total for their student loans. But if half the debt is going to be canceled of the 43 million, that means it's going to hit a lot of those people who are substitute teachers in DC and New York and in Chicago and Peoria, Illinois, and Gary, Indiana, the home of the Jackson family, whoever they are. And they are deeply underpaid, but they teaching your children. And they want to teach your children, but guess what? I can't make no money in this, and I'm even a substitute teacher. I'm a full-time teacher, man. You know what? I'm going to go use these degrees to go make more money because I got to pay my car note. I got to figure out how I'm going to get out from under debt. I am crippled by these student loans and can't figure out how to get my credit score up enough to get a point. Again, Biden saying this the thing. Once they apply this, once this hits your account, you are restored to good standing with your with your loans, and now you can negotiate a different kind of payment. Now the predatory lenders already lining up trying to figure out how they can do that. That's why the government got to intervene. I heard Ayanna Presley say the other night, you know, they're coming up with the criteria now. Saw Cardona standing next to the Secretary of Education, standing next to Biden. They got to work out that criteria. And one of my students, I love it. One of my students actually is an intern at the Department of Education. She said, Dr. Carr, I can attest to that. They are working overtime now, trying to come up with that form, come up with that category, because they don't want to. They want these banks to come in and say, okay, y'all back in. All right, let me hit your ass again. No, you got to cap the payments. This is something that they're working on. Cap the payments. One of the things in this Biden is saying, we want to cap your monthly payments to maybe 5% of your income. What would that do? That means I'll be paying forever. No, remember, once you get past the 10-year or the 20-year line, the rest of the money is forgiven, and we're going to service the interest. So you got to go to the details. People out here just talking about, as John Bracey always say, people spin theories on very small margins of knowledge. This is not a panacea, and everybody ain't going to college, and this is where I'm going to come in for a landing today. Because, you know, after these sessions, and I got some more things I got to do today, and then in the middle of the night when everything's quiet, maybe because Michael Jackson's birthday is the 29th of August, I might put on, please just leave me alone, leave me alone. That really, I understand, Michael. When you're trying to read, you're just trying to be quiet in a space, you want everybody just be quiet. Everybody just be quiet. Right? I get Michael Jackson. Trust me. At least in terms of the art. Now, I ain't never been to the man house. I ain't been to Neverland Ranch. I ain't been to, you know, and every time you come for him, he got something else for you. So I don't know what's going on. But my point is this. Coming in for a landing. When we think about school teachers, we're thinking about people who are literally shaping the future of any society they're in. And this society doesn't respect school teachers. And many of those school teachers just have licenses because on that continuum, they're closer to the Fannie Willises and the Tish James of the world who have JDs. These teachers get masters. These teachers get a bachelor's. If they are teachers who go into administration, think about your favorite school principal. I think about my man, David Norman, my brother, who is out there in the Bronx in New York, who is going for regional superintendent. He's been superintendent of several schools. He is beloved in the community. His father, Nate Norman, was on my dissertation committee. Pop Norman, shout out to him. He's down in Morehouse. He and Mom Norman, who are now they ain't retired. Black people can't spell retired. But the point is that their son, David, he's a school principal and he's loved in the community. He's a New Yorker through and through, born and raised in New York. So, you know, he can put on some Timbs and a hoodie and some jeans and walk through the hood, go in touch. He put on the tie and the suit and go into the board meeting and manage that. And the parents love him. The children love him. That boy has student debt, y'all. And it's important to understand that that debt is not the debt of his parents. His mother was a school teacher. His father's a university professor. They incurred debts too, but those debts are from the 60s and 70s when you could pay that debt like that. Even before when I was in school. It's a different thing. Now, on that continuum, finally, are the people we hold up as those who fought for us. I just interviewed Margaret Edds, who wrote this book, We Face the Dawn, about Spotswood Robinson and Oliver Hill, two of the men who were contemporaries of people like Constance Baker Motley and Pauli Murray. In fact, Spotswood Robinson taught Pauli Murray. They're both Virginians. We Face the Dawn. She named the book for a poem by Paul Laurence Dunbar. I greet the dawn and not a setting sun when all is done. These two men, Howard University Law School graduates, Spotswood Robinson, one of the most brilliant students ever go to a law school in the country. And I've showed y'all this picture before. One of the reasons I want to interview her, I saw her when the book first came out, is because if Spotswood Robinson had been white, he'd probably been on the Supreme Court. There he is as the chief judge in the middle there of the, I've showed y'all this before, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit. On that court was Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who she interviewed, Antonin Scalia, Robert Bork, some of y'all remember that fool, Harry Edwards' brother, who ended up being president of the American Bar Association. On that court, all those judges, Spot Robinson was the chief judge. Ask Doug Wilder about Spotswood Robinson, another graduate of Howard. But my point is that worked himself to exhaustion because in Brown versus Board of Education, he was one of the people, he argued the Virginia case. It was one of the 5 cases with Brown being out of Topeka, Kansas and Delaware. And, you know, we've talked about that before. But Spots Robinson was so brilliant that after they had workshopped and argued and made out, they came out and they did the mock trial at Howard Law. The students assaulted them and the faculty assaulting, like peppered them with questions. This workshop this way. Now they're going to argue before the Supreme Court. Robinson argued the Virginia case before the court. But before they went down there, Thurgood Marshall gave Spotswood Robinson, who was like 7 or 8 years behind him at Oliver Hill at Howard Law, but recognized widely as probably the most brilliant student that ever came through there. Maybe Pauli Murray would be, but anyway, but he had the highest GPA up until like 2003 in the history of Howard University School of Law, the documented history. At any rate, he asks Robinson to edit the final brief. Robinson is so thorough an editor. In fact, when he was a judge, a federal judge years later, he is documented to have written the longest footnote in the history of the federal bench. He was that kind of guy. He worked so hard on that brief that he worked himself almost to death, and they put out an appeal. The NAACP did, saying we're trying to raise money to send Spot Robinson on vacation after they won that case, because Spot Robinson damn near killed himself. But he had a law degree. Student loans not the same then as now, but every time you send a young person to school, every time you go back to school, that licensure, there's no test of your intelligence. It's operating in a social structure that requires us to have licensure. So no, everybody don't have a college degree. No, everybody doesn't need a college degree. Yes, as the world is changing, the community colleges is probably the best thing, because you could actually get student debt, and with your Pell Grant, get enough to retire that debt, so you don't have to rack up $200,000 or more going to one of these schools. Now, I'm not even talking about the 4 HBCUs I mentioned. I'm talking about the NYUs and the Harvards and the Stanfords. You know, the ones that you love, the ones that you worship, the one that you want your master to know you went to, as they ignore you at Martha's Vineyard. But at any rate, the point is that you don't have to do all that. Yes, but most people who don't go to college will benefit in a society where we have a governance formation where we went to school. I didn't go to school to make it on myself. Professor Hunter, you didn't go to school to make it on yourself. You did that to help. So those young people in your classroom right now who you're engaged in, who you're going to train to be journalists, all those young people I have that at Howard, well, I'm going to expose them to this Africana ways of knowing and thinking and being, so they can tap who they are into things they don't know. And more importantly, all the people here, which is everybody on that end of the continuum, who will benefit from the fact that we can resource from these places, that they don't let you in unless you got a Mother May I pass that you paid for in blood and treasure. We benefit collectively. Ignore those people having them arguments, because as is written, Will Bunch, who's a reporter, actually, this is where I can end, with the Philadelphia Inquirer, he just published a book called After the Ivory Tower Falls: How College Broke the American Dream and Blew Up Our Politics and How to Fix It. And as I told him Thursday night at the partnership, I said, you know, the How to Fix It chapters in these books I find are pretty much worthless. Plus, it ain't my objective to fix it. But the stuff that comes up to it, he starts with his grandmother. He says, my grandmother never got a chance to go to college, yet she started one. That's a slight oversimplification. She actually took over a small, struggling secretarial school and turned it into an accredited college, awarding bachelor degrees to the middle class of Middle America. But still, her unlikely story tells a lot about what college became during our bold 20th century and what it no longer is today. By the time Arlene Hammond Bunch passed away in 1987 at 80 years and 1 week of age, she'd handed out thousands of diplomas from Mid-State College in Peoria to Central Illinois farm girls dreaming of taking flight in the heyday of Pan Am. She's a slave to the rhythm. To Caterpillar assembly line refugees seeking a pathway to the American dream. She works so hard to make her way. To Caterpillar assembly line refugees seeking a pathway to the American dream inside the Ledger Book of Accounting, and to the tempest-tossed victims of 1980s layoffs yearning to learn computers. I need the jobs of the future. Ain't no more coal, fool. Do you see California getting ready to ban gas cars? You guys better go back to computer school. Oh, you need some money? You need a loan? Oh, you qualify for a Pell Grant because you got $5. You don't want loan forgiveness? Oh, you know what? No, go back to the coal mine. Just stay there. I'm going to send Tom Cotton, Ron DeSantis. Oh, they ain't coming over there. Why? Because they got mansions. They laughing at you, except election time when they tell you that we the enemy. And then you send them to D.C. to make sure that they take that money for loan forgiveness and give it to the corporate masters that sent them there. In this book, Will Bunch makes this point. He said, you know the reason that public colleges are starved? Because legislators want that money for the people that fund them, and how they get people to vote for it is that they've turned the public into the white public. Because I'm talking about the social structure. I'll end with the governance structure in a second. They turn the white public into this with this attitude, many of them, that if you go to college, you think you better than us. That's why when you look at the people who voted for Donald Trump, you see the percentage of them who did not go to college. You want them people not to go to college. In fact, you want them people to hate college. In fact, you want them people to say, if you went to college, you ain't nothing but a latte sipping liberal, and you ain't nothing but you hate America, and you hate people, and you hate people like me. Nobody hate people like you. Say Oh, them tonsils look terrible. You need to take them tonsils out. I ain't got no insurance. Well, somebody with a college degree went to Congress until you start putting these other fools in. Here go a doctor going to take your tonsils out. She got an MD. She trying to pay student loans, and she looking down in your throat saying, should I take this tonsil out? Should just close this up and tell this hillbilly go on back and pray to whatever it prays to so that, you can just go on and die. Why? Since you don't want me to have a degree. And if you're working at Morehouse School of Medicine, Howard University School of Medicine, Meharry Medical College, Charles Drew School of Medicine, you're probably getting paid less than your counterparts at the University of Georgia, University of Alabama, University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and you're trying to pay back $600-700 a month student loan while you're trying to serve the community, while you're trying to raise your family, while your kid is a first-year freshman at Texas Southern, and you're trying to pinch off some money to send to her the whole time. And when you hear Biden say that, you say, shit, that ain't a whole lot of money, but that's more than nothing. Okay, now we got to keep pushing. Why? Then you go elect some more people, and guess what? If you want the 50 stacks, you need to tip that damn federal legislature, House and Senate. You said voting don't matter. I'm telling you why it does. You ask somebody with student loans if $50,000 would be better than 20 or 10. The answer is going to be yes. And for us, education was never about escaping the hood. Education was about elevating all of us. We have a different concept of education than these people who have been forced to choose between their whiteness and their life, and they choose their whiteness. They ain't gonna kill us. I'm gonna stop.
No, keep going.
No, that's it. I'm gonna stop because I'm tired of people. That don't mean nothing. Biden, you talk to somebody with a student loan.
Come on. And I love the destigmatizing community college, because
yes,
I know maybe both of us were raised in environments where community college was looked down upon. Like if you went to a community college, maybe you weren't as smart as somebody else. But it is strategy. It is financial strategy. And for a lot of young people in high school, getting those college credits through community college is brilliant.
Brilliant. Do you hear me? Brilliant. These kids blew my mind. I almost cried. Y'all really, they done figured this out, Prof. Oh, it's brilliant.
Listen, like I said to my students, unless y'all gonna be doctors or engineers or something, nobody's ever asked GPA, where I went to school, all of the, you can be wildly successful, It's so weird how we've been trained to not live our best lives. So I'm so grateful. I'm looking forward to this experience. I don't even know if we can call it a class with you.
We're together. That's right. That's right.
So did you figure out when we're going to do it? Because I know office hours.
No. Yeah, I had to figure that out because Tuesdays and Thursdays, it might be Tuesday evening. I'm saying that tentatively because I'm kind of locked up, and Fridays because we're still remote. I promised the young people that I would do, they have a museum requirement on the weekends, and so I'm going to meet them down there a few times. And anybody in Nubians there, if y'all want to come meet some of these young people or just be around, I'll let y'all know when. I have to do it week by week. I can't do it this weekend. By the way, Larry Crow was in Pittsburgh. They're having a Martin Delaney conference. Some Nubians showed up last night. He was so happy. You remember from Monday night, they said, they came. So they're out there now in Pittsburgh battling over Martin Delaney. So, with these Negroes like Tunde Adeleke, who wants to make Martin Delaney something other than what he is. Shout out, Tunde. We see you, boy. We see you. I got all your books stacked up over here. You ain't saying nothing. You haven't done nothing. Anyway, I'm sorry about that. But yeah, it'll probably be Tuesday. I gotta fine tune it, but yeah, it'll probably be Tuesday. Okay. Well, it's just because otherwise, right now I'm working 7 days a week. I gotta figure out which them days.
Same, but it doesn't. Some of these days don't feel like work. Like
it's not work. Yeah, I shouldn't even say work.
Like Monday, doesn't even feel like work. It feels like purpose for me and you. Yes. I know for you.
Yes. Oh no, definitely. And I love it, y'all. I'm loving it. I'm loving it. People are chiming in on what they did to get those degrees. Community colleges, as we say, the universities know this, but our schools, Stillman College. I was looking at the president of Stillman College. He has some partnerships with the University of Alabama. These little schools could be in real trouble, and we're not given in kind of way. By the way, again, you're gonna put the link in the description. pardon Marcus Garvey and go get 10 other people to sign that. Let's just overflow the boundaries. Because again, Joe Biden didn't forgive a penny of debt because he wanted to. He did that because we were in the streets. If you think for a minute that Tamika and them and all that they was all by, no, they knocking on doors in Georgia to send Ossoff and Warnock to the Senate to have the votes to do that. Now we need Mandela Barnes in Wisconsin. Now we need Gary Chambers in Louisiana. In other words, you got to overflow that. You got to render Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema useless, because if they had the votes and Sinema and Manchin hadn't kneecapped this, you might have got to 50 stacks. You certainly would have got more money in the bill that passed that he signed a few weeks ago. But the whole point though is that you know, we have to understand that, yes, you should have voted for Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders if you wanted the thing to be free or community college to be free. But guess what? Joe Biden will do it if you make him. And once they make community college free, Professor Hunter, it's going to change the whole game. All them kids going to go get ready. They're going to show up at Spelman as first semester juniors. That's a different mentality. I mean,
it is.
They're going to be 18 years old, which is why now we got to deal with the question of maturity. So,
I mean, these kids have had to grow up a lot faster. I'm seeing that too. Like this generation is not, they're not here for the game. So I'm optimistic. And to your point, making people do stuff, but also getting accreditation within narrative so that, you know, you charge a whole lot less.
No
that's coming, you know, not even a full 2 years in. I'm so incredibly, I can't say proud, pleased, but also just optimistic about what's going to come next, because you're starting to see things just come together, people come together. This is super exciting. And
I'm looking at the chat, Prof. I just want to mention one person. Infinity 818425 said his professors at Cal Berkeley taught at Berkeley Community College. The University of California system, Clark Kerr set it up. Actually, I talk about this with my law students. We read about that. And this is just 30 seconds. The University of California system was set up at a way that was affordable. And what has happened in the California system over the last 20, 30 years is criminal. In fact, it started with the man whose name no one black in D.C. speaks when they fly into D.C. National Airport, the R word. When he was governor, you start making it inaccessible. But the whole idea was you have the community colleges, you have the state university system, and you got the University of California system. So Cal Berkeley, then you have, of course, Cal State, Los Angeles, then you have the community colleges. That was the way it was set up, and it was all affordable. Affordability isn't about the salaries of the professors. They'll tell you that, oh, most of the money at university goes to salaries of the staff. And which of them staff is professors, and which of them damn administrators that are making more money than God looking around trying to cut programs. Trust me, I know what I'm talking about. I'm going to say less at this point. But the point is that affordability has to do with turning universities into, at the top, hedge funds. And some of these HBCUs want to be Negro versions of that. And at the bottom, places to gate people's money, which is why y'all who paid them for-profit degrees, part of the loan forgiveness is to get you out from under that bad money that you spent or that you are now tied to. So,
Dr. Carr, thank you.
Thank you, Professor Hunter.
So much.
Whoa!
Appreciate you. And, you know, it was almost like, I don't think my young mind processed that what Michael Jackson did. And sometimes you don't have to beat people with a hammer.
Exactly.
You just, it's matter of fact. Yes.
You just sing. If you got a gift, you just sing it.
You penetrate people's souls, and of course, Egyptians were black.
No question.
Thank you. I will see you in them Nubian streets.
Nubian streets.
Dr. Carr's office hours and yada, Dr. Yada. I'm in tomorrow. Maroon's medicine chest. Dr. Beatty's moved to Wednesday. We got also yoga. This week we're gonna do is Virgo season, and all the Virgos was just showing out in the chat with their Virgo selves, including, you know, Carl and Uriah is born on the same exact day, the 24th.
My sister. Happy birthday. My sister's birthday was the 24th, Gussie. My mama.
My sister was born on the same day as Carl and Uriah's?
24th. Yes, indeed. Shout out, Gussie. Happy birthday. Of course, I talked to her on her birthday, but now happy birthday again.
Oh, man. All
Thank
right.
My mother's mother. So anyway.
Yes. And your mother was Virgo. And all of the Virgos out there, happy Virgo season. We're going to do astrology with Sam Reynolds.
Dr. Reynolds. Yes.
3 days. But Dr. Carr.